I've raised issues and concerns about the recent number of payouts to various people mistreated by Victoria Police. Danny Laidley got a payout. Age photographer Pepper Strode got a payout. The people at the nightclub got a payout. What concerns me is not the payout. They're well entitled to it. It's the confidentiality around that payout. It's our money, and I think unless the person getting the payout wants it confidential, that's a different matter. And the Chief Commissioner said that is usually the case. I raised with him the case of Avi Yemini, a man who I described as a fringe journalist. He's a reporter on Rebel News, right-wing outlet, and very active around the town. I'm not about his worldview or about his reporting. I'm just about his dealing with Victoria Police. He was arrested and detained by the police 3 times. He sued them and he won. He didn't get compensation. He got an apology, which is what he wanted ahead of compensation. This is what the Chief Commissioner said about that case. He says that the police would pay compensation, but only if it was confidential. Do you know anything about that case?
I certainly know we did issue an apology to Mr. Yemini. I think he was scooped up. I can't be 100% sure on this, but in some protests where he was in the midst of others. I'm not aware of any compensation or any other issues.
So you're not aware of whether he was told he'd have compensation, but only if it was confidential?
No, I'm not.
I think that's his allegation. Okay, that was Shane Patton about an hour ago. Avi Yemini's on the line. He's called in requesting a right of reply. He wanted to talk to the Chief Commissioner. I wasn't sure that was appropriate, but he's on the line now. Avi, good morning. What was your right of reply? What do you want to say about Shane Patton?
Well, I think firstly the Commissioner, thanks for having me on, but thanks, the Commissioner I think is being incredibly dishonest there, and I think the truth is a scandal. Victoria Police cover up their shocking misconduct using public funds. And that's not only the payout. And contrary to what Shane Patton claimed, in every case I personally know of, Victoria Police are the ones to attach the confidentiality clause.
Well, let's get to that. Let's get to that. I do not agree.
In my case, I'll tell
hang on. Let me ask the question, or we won't get anywhere. For starting, I won't have you calling Chief Commissioner dishonest. You can disagree with him. It's not a matter of going to his integrity.
I said he was being.
All right, well, we won't do that. What I will ask you, you got an apology from Victoria Police. I've got it in front of me. Fair enough. You got apology for being arrested 3 times. Was there any discussion of compensation?
So before the apology, they were willing to pay me hundreds of thousands of tax dollars just to avoid having to issue that apology for unlawfully arresting me on 3 occasions while I was reporting for Rebel News on the condition I would keep it confidential. But I rejected that at every stage in the negotiation because for me and my work, that piece of paper that you got in front of you, that apology, that I encourage all your listeners to read. It's pinned on my top of my Twitter feed. It's more valuable than any amount of money. Okay. It's essentially a license for me to carry on doing my job. And if there's any doubt of what I'm claiming, I challenge Shane Patton to release all the communications in our negotiation, including his internal discussion.
Okay. I'll read the apology. On each occasion, Mr. Yemini was wrongfully arrested and detained by members of Victoria Police while reporting for Rebel News. Victoria Police sincerely apologised for the hurt and embarrassment suffered by Mr. Yemini and the dates. They go through the date. Okay, and you are saying that the police offered you several $100,000, but you only got it if this apology was confidential. Is that correct?
They were offering me hundreds of thousands, but we didn't specify the amount because I was a blatant no to anything.
But what were the strings to the hundreds of thousands? What did you have?
Confidentiality. Even the apology, which they were forced at the end at the highest level. That's their words, not mine. To get it approved, they didn't want to give it unless there were terms around how I use it. And Neil, I told them straight up, I'm printing it on T-shirts and wearing it because I'm being vindicated after being dragged through the court on the tax dime for 2 years for something that they finally admitted they were wrong about. And I think the public has every right to know how much that cost, why it took so long, and why they are so desperate to keep these cases hushed. I know in the case of my security guard, I can tell you, the Rebel News security guard, he is more than willing to come on your show and discuss it, but he cannot because they're forcing the confidentiality. Let Shane Patton waive that, and I can have him.
Well, I've asked him that, and he wouldn't waive it. How much was it? Well, you won't tell us how much. What your security guard, in general terms, received? What, 100,000. Well, the sort of figures you're talking.
More than well over 100,000. But the point here is, Shane Patton says, I heard in your interview that there are reasons that why Victoria Police wouldn't release somebody. What are they? Give me one good reason. One good reason that will pass the pub test as to why the Victoria Police need to keep this quiet. This is public money, and these were high-profile matters, and even, and that's the fact here. These were high-profile ones. You know how many little people that have been unlawfully arrested during the COVID enforcement that are now, and I know personally, are now taking their cases. They're being inspired by public ones and taking their cases, and I can guarantee you a lot of them are going to get paid out.
Okay, well, let's keep in touch with that. You tell us who they are. Well, if you're able, we'll contact them. Thank you. Avi Yemini called in wanting right of reply. Okay, I've got the apology in front of me, and they did issue an apology. He is saying that he was offered money, but only if this was kept confidential. He is saying further that his security guard was paid money on the basis it remained confidential, and that confidentiality was requested by the Victorian Police Force. Now, Shane Patton says differently. In fairness, you should recognise Shane Patton says differently. He says that it's not always the police wanting confidentiality. It's a negotiated thing with the complainant. What concerns me, and I'm not advocating for Avi Yemini at all. What concerns me is there's a lot of public money being used here in the other areas too. Danny Laidley, I mentioned, was a case. The aged photographer who was pepper sprayed. I think we have a right to know, particularly if the people who have received the payout approve, and maybe only if they approve, a right to know from the police at least a total fund. How much all up in the past year?